On Australia and New Zealand. Just before we do start, I would like to wish everybody a safe and happy festive season coming up. And if you are traveling, please travel safely. I'd just like to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, we've got about 200 people going to be booking in to listen to us tonight. And tonight, for the first time in a long time, we're actually doing a combined interactive webinar. And I'll explain that in just a second, but we're doing it on Australia and New Zealand. You'll see in the, hopefully you'll see in our chat room or the way, whatever we call it, introducing Desiree Lindeque. Desiree is a licensed advisor. She's our operations manager worldwide. She's based in New Zealand, she's South African, and Desiree has been in New Zealand for about a year and a half now. And worked for Network Migration for, gosh, I can't even remember, Des, but it's eight or nine odd years now. So Desiree will be answering questions tonight as well, especially clearly if you are in New Zealand. I'll be giving email addresses out shortly, or Des or one of the ladies will type them into the chat room. With our email addresses. So if you're on Desiree's side of the world, Australasia, Asia, etc., Japan, Philippines, those types of places, please contact Des because she'll be able to help you. I can help you as well. But Desiree's on your side of the world, so it's sort of more easy for time zones, etc. Introducing also Xenia von Rooyen. Xenia has been with the company a couple of years now. And Xenia is working very closely with the lady next to her, Liz Fullewen. Xenia is our job search guru, our job search training guru, I should say, where we have a job search training division where we will introduce you guys to the job market. Xenia will explain what she does later. I'm going to get her to do that. And then also introducing Liz Fullewen. Liz is our South African operations manager and also provisionally licensed immigration advisor for New Zealand as well. Just on that particular, and Ruan, you'll see him up there, although you don't see his screen because he's quite shy, our Ruan. But he is our marketing manager, and Ruan, of course, arranges all of these events for us. Guys, if there's technical issues tonight, please forgive me. I'm an older person, and we're using Zoom for only the second time, so welcome. Hopefully there won't be technical issues. Everybody that's watching this webinar tonight and that has booked in for the webinar tonight will be getting a copy of it emailed to them tomorrow, which means you can watch it at your leisure. This first slide, I just want to point out a couple of things. Firstly, a huge big thank you to some of our service providers, which we put on the front slide here. I'll be explaining some of them in a little bit more detail in a second. But Network Migration, a little bit of history, has been around for, gosh, well over 30 years. I'm a New Zealander. I lived in New Zealand for 20 years, and then like a lot of young Kiwis do, or did back then, and frankly are still doing it, I popped over to Australia. I really enjoyed living in Australia. I lived in Australia for 10 years. And then I was working for an international publishing house, and they offered me a contract to come to South Africa for 2 years. I took them up on that contract, which I was very excited about. And once the contract had finished after 2 years, I was really enjoying my time in South Africa. So I decided to stay, but I was jobless. So I joined a company called Network. Well, I joined this company back in 1993. And in 1996, I had an opportunity to purchase it. So I did. And I'm very proud to say that over the last 30 odd years since I've owned the company, we've immigrated thousands of families. I don't even know the specific number, but I think it's upwards of 13, 14, 15,000 families. In the old days, and when I say the old days, up until probably 6 or 7 years ago, most of our clients came from Africa, the continent. They still do. But with technology the way it is today, gosh, when I started in this business, we didn't even have cell phones, guys. Some of you don't remember those days because you're too young. But the technology allows us to work with anyone, anywhere. And we all know that. I mean, COVID clearly brought that out as well. So we've got clients as far away as Ireland and China and Canada and the Philippines, all over the world. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you're listening to me today and you want some immigration advice, the advice from us will always be free. The only time that you will ever pay any monies for our advice is if you officially engage our services, which I'm going to talk about through the webinar. Normally, the webinars would last, they're very quick normally, but because we're doing 2 countries and we're going to allow interaction for you guys to ask some questions. So if you've got a question, please put it into the chat room, and Desiree or Liz or Xenia will answer. If it's an immigration question, the answers will come from Desiree and Liz, because one point I did want to make is if you're going to deal with an immigration company, please always make sure that your very first interaction is with the licensed advisor or a licensed advisor. There is a very simple reason for that, and that it's because it protects you as the consumer. When you pay a licensed advisor, your money's held in trust, and the advisors can only draw down on those funds as they achieve certain goals through your migration process. So just always make sure, listen, you can look them up. You know, if you're shopping around, just always ask. If you're online or on the phone or email or whatever, just check ask for their license number. We're supposedly, and I do believe this is regulation, Des or Liz, but we have to display our license numbers on our emails that we send out, etc., etc. So if you're getting an email from someone that doesn't have an IAA license number at the bottom, or for Australia a MARA license number, IAA stands for the Immigration Advisors Authority. That's New Zealand based, and MARA, it's actually OMARA. It stands for the Office of Migration Agents Registration Association, and that's based in Australia. So please, please, please make sure that you're always dealing, especially initially, with a licensed advisor. I mean, down the line, of course, if you're documentation collecting, and we've got file managers that collect documents off you and will ask for a birth certificate or this or that or whatever it might be. But the initial consultation should always be with a licensed advisor, and make sure that if you're signing an agreement, that you are signing it with the licensed advisor, because we are held accountable. We must maintain our licensing every year, and it's not easy. I mean, Liz, you've got a couple of degrees in your back pocket. It's like doing a degree, isn't it, all over again? Pretty much. Okay. So anyway, thanks. We've got an outstanding team that work for the company. I always get this wrong. We're about 15 team members, and the company has 3 divisions. One division is the visa division. Clearly, our colleagues help us in collecting and all of the necessary documentation that we require to submit to the relevant authorities at each stage of the application. So Liz, myself, and Desiree have a team of file managers that work with us. And clearly their job's often to collate the documentation, get it all ready. Although I must admit the ladies do pretty much most of this themselves anyway. But also, and then of course, check all the documentation. In our circumstances, ladies and gentlemen, we will always send you final documentation for lodgement to double check. Just in case, we reversed a birth date by accident, or a passport number, or missed a number or something like this. And so we have a triple checking system on our side, and then a final checking system on your side. And when everybody's happy, then great, we can submit the application to the relevant authorities. So please, as I said, make sure you're using a licensed advisor. Right. Well, there we are. So that's there are pictures from a few years ago. I think we should doll those up and put Christmas decorations on us for the next one, although we won't be doing next one until next year, guys. Right. So let's just move on. Sorry, to the next slide. Right. We just wanted to take the time to mention 2 specific companies that you really should engage with. All right. One is Point to Point Capital. They're based in South Africa. So anybody shifting funds from the African continent or opening bank accounts, we can send you the links. We're partnered with the banks in Australia and New Zealand, so we can send you those links. But we work with an incredible company called Point to Point. Evan at Point to Point there. Please, by the way, guys, remember you're getting this email to you tomorrow, but take screenshots or photos of these pages if you want. And Evan Brand and his team, my son actually works for Point to Point. That's not why I'm promoting it, by the way. He's learning the finance industry, etc. And he's been working there nearly a year now, and he's loving it. Clearly, normally when you shift funds, you shift them through banks. Well, so does Point to Point. They use Capitec and Investec mostly, but their spot rates are different and way less. So I'm not going to talk about something I don't understand. So Point to Point Capital on this side would be very, when you're talking about your RAs or your pension funds or how to shift money, how much can you take, what are your tax implications, etc. Please contact Evan at Point to Point or send an email to us. And the person that runs our relocation division is Rose, and her email is rose@networkmigration.com. And Rose is actually my wife, and she's 15 feet away from me at the moment, cooking for dinner for later tonight. Right, so the next one that you should, especially if you're going to New Zealand, well, it is in New Zealand, unfortunately, only at the moment, is Apex. Avundi Fitchett she was one of our clients many, many years ago, I think 7 or 8, 9 years ago now. When Avundi joined Apex in New Zealand, when she immigrated there, she contacted us virtually immediately and said, hey guys, we'd really love to partner with you and help people settle into New Zealand. So you have these sessions with Avundi. They're free, they don't cost you anything, and they talk about everything from getting a house mortgage or bond through to things like doing wills and opportunities for, of course, what do you do with KiwiSaver when you're eligible to get it? All these things that you currently don't know about. Part of immigrating is understanding the country you're going to and what you can and cannot do. And these guys live there. All right. And of course, so they are unbelievable. And lots of our clients are using Apex because they're just so good at what they do. All righty. Now, New Zealand, I'm going to talk about New Zealand first, my home country. I love my home country. Congratulations to those South Africans that are listening to me. I mean, 1 point is still the World Cup. So well done. Clearly, my children were born in South Africa, so they put on their Springbok shirt when I'm watching the game. So I'm very lonely when I'm watching the All Black games. But New Zealand, listen, guys, let's not pull any punches here. Under the previous regime, and whether you use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, New Zealand's gone through some hard times and are currently slowly coming out of those hard times, thank God. And I'm not going to name names. Just look up who the previous Prime Minister was, you'll know. She doesn't even live in the country anymore, so that just shows you. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. But bottom line, with the previous Labour government, and this is my opinion, they didn't do a good job. They didn't look after the economy in the country. And the New Zealanders were suffering because of it. And so we all know New Zealand went into recession a couple of years ago. We do believe they're coming out of it quite quickly at the moment. But just on that particular subject, we're really happy with the national government. Most of my entire adult life, National have been in power in New Zealand, and New Zealand's always been a hugely, top 10 destination for people to immigrate to. Right, there isn't a visa category on the planet that we do not do. We can do anything, guys, for both countries, from skilled migrant, student. Entrepreneur is a bit tricky for New Zealand because at the current moment, the visa doesn't really work. And INZ are well aware of that. The powers that be, we've met with them. We know that they know this entrepreneur visa and business and investor visa needs tweaking. They just haven't tweaked it. I mean, COVID threw a big spanner in the works through that. So the ones we're going to talk about mostly tonight are accredited employer work visa and skilled migrant applications. But if you want to go on a visit, on a holiday, if you want to go on a visit to job hunt, if you want to do, you want to study there or any type of visa, we will give you the free advice on any of them. And by the way, when you're wanting the information, just email us your CVs or the questions that you've got. Okay. So we often get blank emails saying, I got one an hour ago saying, I really want to immigrate to New Zealand. And she was asking me some very pertinent questions, but she didn't attach her CV. So I can't assess her. I can't assess you without knowing what you do, if you're qualified or not. You don't necessarily have to be, by the way, especially for New Zealand. But the point is this, if you ask your pertinent questions, by all means, right? But please, if you're going to do that, just attach your CVs and then give me the structures of your family, because we're going to quote you on immigrating you. And if you're one person, clearly your quote's going to be less than if you're 4 people. So just give us the instructions of your families, and then we can, quote you. But please send me the CVs or ask me any questions that you have. Gosh, 53 new messages. Wow. Okay, cool. I'm assuming you ladies are answering these questions because I can't see them. But anyway, that's great. Thank you. Right. So without further ado, well, let me explain something first. If you're going to New Zealand on a skilled migrant application, you would be lodging an accredited employer work visa. This visa came out in October a couple of years ago. was launched by the previous government, funnily enough. It does need some tweaking. The Right Honourable Erica Stanford, the current Minister of Immigration, has mentioned in a conference that Desiree went to about a month ago that she's in the process of doing those positive tweaks, and we think that they'll all come into effect by March next year. Desiree might touch on some of those if she feels like a little bit later when she has a bit of a chat. So you might qualify for what we call a straight to residency application, which is great. Certain people do, but you're still going to need a job. Anyone that is doing a skilled migrant application into New Zealand that is the main applicant cannot submit the application without a genuine offer of employment. And when I come to talk to Des in a minute, I'm going to ask Des to explain, because Desiree works very closely with the companies in New Zealand. And gives and helps the companies with this quite tricky process under some of the rules and regulations, and Desiree can talk about that. But before we do that, we have decided as a company, and we like the fact that one or two other companies out there are taking what we do, and using our business model sometimes, and I won't go into that. We called it plagiarism this morning, I think, Xenia, that was you. But anyway, job search training and teaching you guys how to find a job in New Zealand, if you're going to New Zealand, of course, is critical. Because if you don't have a job offer, you can't lodge it. So think about it this way. There are 3 reasons an application to New Zealand will fail. You fail the medical. So if you have, it would have to be a pretty major medical issue, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, if you're a diabetic or an asthmatic or you're on chronic medication for something, I mean, these sorts of things are generally not reasons for declines. I mean, I'll be blunt here. If you currently had cancer, for example, that would be a reason for decline. But if your cancer was in remission and your oncologist was able to, send the relevant documentation stating what we needed, then you'd get in a lot of cases if your cancer had been in remission. But if you do have a medical issue, please tell me about it. Everything you tell us is private. It's not going anywhere. We don't post it anywhere. You're covered by the Privacy Act, in fact. So if you have a medical condition that might be concerning, tell us about it. If you've got any medical condition, tell us about it, and we'll tell you whether it could be concerning or not. So that's one reason you could be declined, is you fail medical. Another reason, if you have a character issue, i.e. a criminal record, most cases. But a character issue can sometimes be deemed, I remember many, many, many years ago, we had a client that had been turned away from the UK. It was 21 years prior to him lodging an application for New Zealand. So it basically, he just forgot. And on your forms, it says, have you ever been rejected an application for entry to another country? Right? And he ticked no. Well, of course, immigration found out that they had turned him away at Heathrow Airport. It took us 7 months to fix it, because he didn't tell us either, because they basically insinuate you're lying to them. And if you're lying to them, then you can forget it. You're not going to get in. All right. So your character, if you have a major criminal record, and I underline major because sometimes, we might have got caught speeding, etc. We might have got caught, God, I don't know. I stole a packet of chips when I was 14 years old, and I got caned for it in school. You're not allowed to cane anyone anymore. So, etc., etc. So if you've got something that you might be worried about, tell me about it, please. And this is going to sound a bit weird, but if your current spouse doesn't know that you've done something slightly naughty in the past, I still need to know about it. All right, because it's something that we need to address as we're lodging the applications. So so that's one reason is criminal records or major criminal records. One reason is health, and the only other reason this will fail is you don't get a job. So what this boils down to, ladies and gentlemen, is how committed are you to work with us or whomever you're engaging to do this, but we're talking about us because this is our webinar. How committed are you to working with us to find a job? If you don't find one while you're sitting in your home country, are you prepared to say, okay, I'll fly over there and I'll go to face-to-face interviews? Because if you are prepared to fly over and go to face-to-face interviews if necessary, then you have a virtually 98% chance of making sure this process will succeed. I'd even go as far as saying 99%. If you took how many people that we've sent to New Zealand to job hunt over the last 30 years, which is thousands, all right, we could count the failures in a percentage and it would be less than 1%. But you've got to be committed to this. And of course, you've got to fund it because you've got to fly to New Zealand. And normally you'd have to spend at least 1 to 2 months there to finalise employment. Okay. So, but without further ado, we've put a tremendous amount of effort and time and resources into helping you guys find a job. So I'm going to introduce Xenia von Rooyen, and she's going to explain her role in the company. Before she starts, I'd just like to say, Xenia might be quite new with the company, a year or two, or nearly 2 years now. I think it's 2, isn't it, Xenia?
A year and 2 months to be
Year and 2 months,
exact.
sorry. But the compliments that we get from our clients regarding the training that Xenia does with them on how to find a job, I mean, we're blessed to have her. We're getting some outstanding comments. And, you know, when the clients do what she says, often they're successful. So, Xenia, the floor is yours. Did you hear me, Xenia?
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate the compliment.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so as you can see from that screen that's in the background of Andrew, I can hear you. Sorry, I have a bit of a network problem, so sometimes you're hanging as well. So if you are losing me, I'm sorry about that.
We're not losing you. There's just a little bit of a delay.
Okay, no problem. So yeah, guys, as you can see from the background screen behind Andrew, that's kind of the setup of how our meetings would be if you would sign up with Network Migration. You would be working with me quite closely to kickstart your job search journey and the most effective way, and that's where I come in. And yeah, our sessions are made to focus on 2 very critical areas, which are optimizing your LinkedIn. So we'll be working on LinkedIn most of our training sessions, and also to prepare you for the all-important job interview, which is why you all are all here. You want to land your job and get your dream job. And by that training session, it's so informative and helpful. There's no way you will not be successful or having a good interview based on the training I'm providing to you guys. I also rewrite your CV in the correct format to ensure that it aligns with what the local employers are expecting. And throughout this process, I'll guide you and support you every step of the way, basically almost holding your hand. I know some of you also might feel hesitant about using LinkedIn. Some of you might not be into social media, or you feel a bit shy putting yourself out there. I want to assure you that LinkedIn is a professional platform. It's not your typical social media. It's about connecting with the right people and getting noticed by the right employers. This is not Facebook, where people are often judgmental or negative. LinkedIn is actually quite the opposite. And during our training, I'll teach you how to navigate the platform confidently and effectively, so you can speak the language of your future employer and do it with confidence while having some fun. And the best part about this training is it is actually quite fun. It's practical, it's informative, and it's a refreshing break from all the paperwork and admin that can feel overwhelming during this process. So that's me in a nutshell. I look forward to working with each and every one of you and to see you guys succeed.
Thanks you so much, Xenia. I'll just put the next slide on just before I invite Liz in. But NP, I'm not sure if Des or Liz has answered this, but when you go to New Zealand to find a job, you are telling New Zealand Immigration that's what you're coming there to do. So you're not trying to hide anything here. If you went to New Zealand and you said, no, I'm coming on a genuine holiday, and of course on the arrival card you ticked holiday, you are leaving yourself open for a rejection. You may or may not even be rejected on that one, but you shouldn't be doing it. So when we apply for visitors visas for our clients, we supply Immigration New Zealand with quite a lot of documentation. It's not just, hey, I'm coming to go surfing for 2 weeks in Auckland or somewhere, or Piha. So the documentation required for a visitor's visa for job search is actually quite extensive, and even for a holiday, because they don't want you coming over there on a so-called holiday and then finding a job, because that's a character issue. So NP, you're definitely allowed to look for work in New Zealand, provided, of course, we tell them that's what you're going to do. And it's really not a major. I get a lot of people contacting me, and Liz and Des, saying, hey, listen, I had 2 yesterday, 2 Zimbabweans. They've applied for visitors visa to New Zealand. They've been declined. And they don't know why. I mean, and it's generally because they just didn't supply enough information to immigration that met the rules and regulations. Because when you go to New Zealand to look for work, what New Zealand basically is saying to you, well, if you don't find work, what have you got back home to go back home to? So they want to show, you've got to show strong ties, spouses, children at home, if you've got a job to go back to, those types of stuff. So these are the sorts of things that we'll put together for you. Liz has recently been involved in getting, I think one client, Liz, he got declined twice and you took it over and then got him his visa, for example, because it was just paperwork. It really was. And you don't realize how much paperwork's involved in this, guys. So I'm just going to invite Liz in for a couple of minutes. Liz pretends to be shy, and she is a little bit shy, I suppose, but she didn't talk last time. And I just wanted to talk because I often bring Liz into some of my meetings because Liz has, first of all, got HR degree. Not only is she a licensed advisor and our operations manager in Africa and works very closely with Desiree and the team, she's my right hand. In fact, Liz will be taking over my seat quite openly in the next few years. But the point is, Liz is very direct. We all are. We're not going to flower this thing up for you. We're going to be telling you exactly what it is, how it is, and where it is. And for example, this particular slide is pretty much people we could probably place without you traveling to New Zealand. Correct me if I'm wrong, Liz.
Right.
So, Liz, moving forward, these types of slides and whatever, you talk to a lady today in a meeting with us. She's a young lady, wants to go over and join her brother over in New Zealand. Lovely woman, etc. And she was in, I think, HR, wasn't it? No, what was she in, Liz? Yeah.
Yes, she had a degree in labor law.
That's right. So
yeah.
Liz, just maybe explain from your side the ins and outs of the job search process and approaching the market, what they need to do, etc., please.
Sure. So I work pretty much hand in hand with Zinnia. Zinnia does all the training with you on LinkedIn. And then once you are ready and your CV has been typed in the New Zealand format, I also head a recruitment company that we market your CV to potential employers in New Zealand and Australia. Some of these positions that are listed on the slide that Andrew has is pretty much recruiters that are currently recruiting for employers in Australia. They are also offering sponsored visas for Australia, and then also for New Zealand. But the New Zealand companies don't do sponsorships because they obviously have to do the accreditation process from the employer side and the job check. Pretty much what we do is we also assist with the registration. You'll note that most of those occupations require registration before we can approach the job market in New Zealand. And that's very important to note that before we can approach the job market or any employer, if your occupation requires registration, we would first like to submit your registration or get you registered before we start approaching the job market. Because if you approach the job market and you haven't completed the registration processes, you're asking an employer to wait at least 6 to 8 weeks for you to get your registration, and then another 8 to 12 weeks for your visa application. So before you approach the job market, you want to make sure that you are 100% visa ready, as well as have your registration completed and your CV typed up. We do cover letters as well for your CVs, as well as letters to employers in New Zealand, which basically just explains the process. And if you are obviously a client of ours, it also gives them a little bit of details of where you are in the process of gathering your documentation. And that all gets sent to you, which you would then start approaching with the job market. Just another point to remember is obviously there's a lot of vacancies on Seek and Trade Me that you'll be looking at. And we train you to try and make connections with those companies on LinkedIn instead of applying to your Seek and Trade Me ads, because a lot of the time you will get pretty much kicked out of the shortlisting process because you'll note that you get a response where it says that you don't have the right to work, and therefore they don't consider your CVs. So Xenia will train you on how you can actually make connections with relevant people within those companies that you find the ads on for Seek and Trade Me. And most of the time, if you share those ads with us, or if you are interested in a position, we would then, reach out and see if there's someone that we can contact a hiring person to get your CV through to. So that's pretty much our role in the job search marketing side of the company, and that's what I do with Zinnia as well. And then, like I said, there's certain occupations where we can guarantee or almost guarantee. We never use the word guarantee in immigration, but where we can say to you the likelihood of you needing to travel on a visitor visa is either 90% or 10%, or you may even get the job from offshore because you're a teacher or a nurse or an occupational therapist. So there's just certain industries where you probably wouldn't be required to go to New Zealand for the face-to-face interviews.
And we often get people coming to us with job offers. And clearly, if that's the case, then you'll get a discount on your fees because, we put a lot of time and effort and money into our job search training, et cetera, et cetera. So, you might just want us to review documentation. You might want us to just do job hunting only, whatever. We can quote you on anything, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk about a bit of a special we're running at the moment a bit later on. But thank you so much, Liz. And then I just want to come back to Sementhry. Sementhry, you've been applying since 2020. That's 4 years. And please take this the right way, because I don't know you at all, or I don't know what you do, but I wouldn't have waited 4 years. I would have hopped on a plane and got over there, because I promise you, I remember in 2019, this was pre-COVID, of course, we had 242 clients. 242 clients flew to New Zealand in that 12-month period. 2 failed. Everyone else got a job. And even post-COVID, or post-borders being open, and as you're well aware, New Zealand opened its borders, one of the last countries in the world, all right? We've had, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 15 clients a month in New Zealand for the last 2 years, and I think we've had 3 or 4 failures in that whole period of time, okay? And some of the reason is respectfully because, and again, if you're going to engage our services, understand that we have put, this is not a hit and miss situation. We've learned how to present a CV. We've learned how your LinkedIn profiles should be done. We've learned what companies are wanting in New Zealand and how you should conduct yourself in an interview. If somebody's been in New Zealand for many, 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 many months and not found a job, there's something wrong. They're doing something wrong. So please feel free. When you send us the CVs, by the way, we're going to send you your pathway to residency, which brings me to my next slide anyway. And because when you get the job offer, most of you will be issued with a 5-year work visa. And that in that 5 years, you'll still be entitled to benefits like schooling and healthcare. Okay. By the way, creche in New Zealand is not free. Just ask Desiree. It's not free. All right. If your children are around, we start school at 5 years old in New Zealand. So from 1 to 5, you're going to be paying for schooling. And depending on their age, of course, depends on what you pay. All right. But we've got all those figures for you. If you need to know, just ask us. But when we send you your pathway to residency, for New Zealand, there are 6 videos for you to watch. Please watch them. They're 60 seconds long. It just explains how we work. Okay. And then please make sure you read the attachments. The first attachment will always be your pathway to the work visa. And 80% of the time, it'll include your residency pathway. And it's 2 pages. And it explains how you get in, what the immigration charges are from the relevant authorities. And it all explains it in that one email. What's your pathway to residency, which I'm going to talk about now. Okay. And then your second document is our service fees, our quote to help you. And those fees can be broken down into stages, be paid in one hit with discounts, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third document is an assessment form, just that you'd fill in to get the ball rolling. And a fourth document, sometimes we include that, which is our company's policies, how we work, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Now, so with all due respect, Sementhry, I would have said to you, and once you send me your CV, I'll be able to tell you this, hop on a plane, get over there. Because if you're in New Zealand, your chances go from 10% or 15% to literally 95 to 100%. Okay. And then a lot of people in the chat room, I don't know if you've answered this question, ladies, but I'm going to answer it anyway, are looking for sponsors. Now, you're asking upfront for somebody to help you fund this process. If you came to me and I'd never met you, and I never, you know, etc. And you came to me up front and you said, "Oh, by the way, I need you to fund me to come over there," I would probably just not answer you. Okay, and I'm being really blunt here. You're not going to know whether you're eligible to even find a sponsor or somebody that's keen on helping you financially until you start the interview process. I mean, how are you going to know? All right, even we don't know. You know, we get surprised sometimes. We had a hairdresser a year and a half ago. They sponsored her. She was going to a small salon on the South Island. They really wanted to keep her, so they gave her a monetary. They're going to take the money back off her, because a sponsor will always take the money back when you get there. But somebody asked, can you get me in, and can we pay you off while we're in New Zealand? To a degree, yes. For New Zealand, not for Australia. We don't do that for Australia, but for New Zealand you can. But you would still have to come up with our deposit in your home country. You are then, and if you're going to be paying us off in New Zealand, we will ask you to sign a debit order, because you're paid weekly in New Zealand, that you would be paying us, I don't know, $50, $100 a week, whatever it is, etc. Because don't forget, $100 is 1,100 Rand at the moment. All right. So you can tend to pay your bills off quite quickly. All right. So if you send me a CV saying I'm requiring sponsorship, I will answer you, but we will not search for sponsors for you. Okay. If it happens through the process. So please understand that. If you're looking for sponsors, you're actually putting a big hurdle in front of yourself before you even start this process. Now, you've all got your jobs, you've all got your visas for New Zealand, you're in New Zealand and you're working. If your occupation was one of the ones that is on this green list tier 1, you had a choice when you got the job offer. Your job offer would need to meet the requirements. I'm going to get Desiree to talk about that in a minute. Your background, i.e. qualifications, etc., would need to meet the requirements for the specific job offer. And if you're on green list tier 1, which is these occupations and these occupations, then you can lodge a residency application straight away. Once you have the job offer, you can bypass the work visa, which, let's be blunt here, will save you a considerable amount of money, especially if you're a family. So if you can afford to lodge, because lodging residency straight away is more expensive. So if you can afford to do that, then yippee-yay. And we would recommend you did it. Okay. So we will be set. If you meet the green list tier 1 requirements, we'll be telling you in the email we send you, and we'll be giving you the processes for a green list tier 1 application. If you go the work visa route on green list tier 1, you still can. You still get your 5-year visa, and then any time in that 5 years, you can, provided of course you meet the requirements, i.e. English tests, etc., then you can lodge your residency. The other way to get residency from the accredited employer work visa is high income, which I'll talk about in a second, a job which requires registration, and the standard qualifications points test. Ruan, for some silly reason, it's probably my fault, mate, but the green list tier 2 is not here. So I can't put it up now because I don't have it on the slide, ladies and gentlemen, but green list tier 2, you get a 5-year visa, and once you've worked for 2 years, then you can lodge your residency. In some occupations on green list tier 2, help me out here, guys, diesel mechanics, teachers that are not secondary school teachers, green list tier 2, Des?
Electricians,
plumbers.
Yeah, plumbers. Most of your trades fall on your tier 2 green list. There's also some building sector, so some construction occupations that are on there, some machinery operating
I don't have a slide,
occupations
do I? No,
that
I
are
don't.
on there.
Yeah.
So it will be on a
Go back
case-by-case
one.
basis. If you send us your CV, we can then confirm
Oh,
with you
God,
if you
there
have
it is.
a green list pathway to residence.
Sorry, that's not the whole list. Oh, is that the whole list? It is. That's the whole list,
Yes.
Des, right? Yeah. Sorry, guys, I did have it. I just jumped the slide. So there they are there. If you're one of these people and meet the qualification and the specification requirements, etc., you're issued your 5-year visa, and after 2 years, you can lodge your residency after 24 months of working. All right. So green list tier 1, you've got a residency pathway. Green list tier 2, you've got a residency pathway. But you might be sitting there saying, well, I'm not a motor mechanic. I'm a graphic designer. with a degree, for example. Well, you've still got a pathway to residency, and this is how it works. Either high income or jobs which requires registration or the standard qualifications points test. This is just an example of how the salaries have increased, the minimum salary requirements from INZ immigration have increased over the years. All right, it's currently sitting at 29.66. So if you get a job offer at less than 29.66, then it's likely that you won't get the visa unless it's like a care worker. Care workers have their own pathway to residency. So some occupations have a lesser salary, right? But very, very few occupations. And the other way, of course, is getting 6 points. So if you've got a doctorate, you get 6 points straight away. So does that mean you can lodge the application? Yes, it does. But you still need the job offer. Okay. Master's degree is 5. You need 6 points to lodge residency. So master's degree is 5 points, honours is 4, and a standard level 7 or 8 postgraduate certificate is 3 points. So you're sitting, okay, so I'm the graphic designer. I've got 3 points. How do I get the other 3 points? Well, that is here. You either get it by earning 1.5 times the minimum wage, or 2 times the minimum wage will give you 4 points, or 3 times the minimum wage. So to give you an example, on 1.5 times the minimum wage, that's $47.41 an hour. No, $47.71 an hour, I think. And that's about $98,500 a year. So if you're earning that for 3 years, you get 3 points, 111 for the 3 years, plus, of course, the 3 points for living in New Zealand for 3 years, which is here. So 3 years in New Zealand, 36 months, 2 years is, 3 points, 24 months in New Zealand is 2 points, and 12 months working in an eligible job offers 1 point. So you can make those points up. Now, you might say, well, hold on, I don't have a qualification. I know that I'm going to get 3 points after working in New Zealand, but I'm a graphic designer. I keep using that. And I've been a graphic designer for the last 15 years, but I don't have a degree. So how will you get those other 3 points? Well, either you need to earn 1.5 times the minimum wage, all right, or while you're in New Zealand in that 5 years, you'd need to upgrade your qualifications, all right? Because clearly, if you're qualified, you're going to get points as well. And we'll talk to you all about this in your consultations. Oh, that's what I was going to suggest. When you send us the information, we're going to send you your pathways. And then if you want to consult, they're free. So you can book a consult straight through TidyCal, straight into my diary. I'm not sure if Desiree uses TidyCal. I don't think you do, Des. No. Okay, so you'd be contacting Desiree directly, or you just email me saying, can I have a chat? And guys, I'll tell you this right now. Bar the Christmas holidays, i.e. Boxing Day and et cetera, and the public holidays, most of the senior managers in the company are working through. So even on our emails, it's going to say, we're closing. We officially actually close on Friday. But the nature of our business means we actually can't close because we're going to get visa approvals coming through. So there will be management working through the Christmas and New Year period. And then we'll all be back to work. Well, the office will be fully open, if you like, or the company will be fully open on the 6th of January. But that doesn't mean we won't be able to work with you. We certainly will. Okay. And then, gosh, we're already up to 45 minutes, guys. And then if you've got a job that requires registration, then of course you also get points for the job that requires registration. I'm not going to go through too much else. Let's go through Australia very quickly. Des, then just on New Zealand.
Andy, can I just quickly run through a couple of questions
That's
that
what
I've seen?
That's what I wanted to. Yeah, you take over a bit, Des, for the next 5 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to just quickly chat about some of the questions that I flagged. Firstly, there was a question about when is a good time to come over to New Zealand. Just so you know, New Zealand employers, because there's very short periods in New Zealand where people take off. Usually when there's a long weekend, New Zealand as a country kind of shuts down because a lot of people go away. But for the December period, most, if not all of your companies, unless you're in tourism or manufacturing, are going to be closed. So coming over on a visitor visa during December or January is not going to be very helpful to you. Also, a lot of companies here are very big on family and being available for your kids. So a lot of companies will let you, work from home or have kids at home because obviously there'll be school holidays during January, as schools here only open on the 4th of February. So coming over to New Zealand during the beginning parts of January is probably not going to be very beneficial to you either. I would probably be looking to the latter part of January, early February. Also, there was a question regarding the recession. New Zealand wasn't actually put into a technical recession. It was, I mean, if you were listening to the politics at the time, there was a lot of arguing as to if we were or if we weren't in a recession. But basically, at the moment, we are seeing far more job offers. It's been a really exciting time to see some job offers rolling in again. But I do think next year will probably be a good start, especially because immigration is working on some changes to the immigration process and making it a bit easier and faster for people to get work visas. On
Just
that
on
note,
that,
someone, yep.
sorry, Des, just on that, I know you're saying don't travel in the next 8 weeks, which clearly great advice, but that doesn't mean they can't prepare in the next 8 weeks.
Absolutely. So
Sorry.
that's one of the questions I want to touch on as
Okay,
well.
cool.
A lot of people are asking, how soon are you going to get me a job? We don't get people jobs. That's not what we do. If you listen to what Zinnia said she trains you. And I think the big difference in that is that the onus is on you to get your job. We will absolutely hold your hand through the process. We will help you with doing your CV in the correct order, setting up your LinkedIn, showing you how to network. It's not about just applying, like Liz said, and flooding the market with your CV. You are going to target the companies that you know will be a good fit for you, and you will actually make connections within those organizations to be able to find a really good fit for yourself. So we're not going to be finding you employment. We are guiding you through the process. We're going to do interview training with you and get you ready for that job offer. We're also, if we have anyone in the industry that we know is looking for your occupation, we will absolutely introduce you to them. But we are not going to be getting an offer of employment for you because, quite frankly, we can't sit the interviews for you. We can't, guarantee that you'll be exactly what the company is looking for. So unfortunately, we cannot guarantee you a job offer. And then another question that was touched on is the process for accreditation and the work visa process. Does it cost your employer anything? Yes and no. The company does have to apply to be, I want to use the word standard business sponsor, but that's for Australia. It needs to apply to be accredited, sorry, which they have to pay for. Their accreditation needs to be renewed yearly. That is a cost for the employer. They also need to apply for what is called a job check. A job check basically allows you as the employee to get a job token to apply for your work visa. Without them doing the job check process, you actually cannot apply for a work visa. So the job check is basically them showing INZ that they have advertised for the role, they've tried to source locally, they weren't able to do it, they do have a contract that meets New Zealand employment law, and that you will be treated, the same as anyone else within the industry. They're not discriminating against you as a foreign worker. And then once INZ assesses all these things, they then issue the job token, which allows you as the employee to apply for your work visa. And that cost is then for you to cover as the employee. So the employer will have their costs and you will have your costs. And no, unfortunately, most employers will not cover those costs on your behalf.
Yeah. Thank you, Des, very much. Okay, so guys, we're going to remember we're here. We're here through the Christmas break, so liaise with us. I'm happy to do consults. I've just booked one today for the 18th. I've got no problem, and they want a face-to-face, so I'm going to meet them down the road here. Our offices in the next couple of months, by the way, just up the road here in Four Ways, being renovated for the next 2-3 months because the building's been bought. So we've just moved out. We're working virtually. Listen, we all work virtually during COVID anyway. So if you want a face-to-face interview, happy to have them. I live in the Four Ways area in Danefern, so we can have them in the clubhouse down here. But anyway, so Des, I'm going to lead into Australia now, but I mean, you are becoming licensed for Australia as we speak. You don't legally, by the way, you don't have to legally be licensed for Australia if you're offshore, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a requirement, but be careful on that one. I'm not going to mention who they are, but there's a company in South Africa that in the last 6 months, we've taken on 4 or 5 of their clients because they don't qualify for Australia and they've been told they do. All right. And their agent doesn't even work in the company. It's a Cape Town based company. So they're giving BS advice, ladies and gentlemen. This is your life we're talking about here. You're not buying a lawnmower, or this is your lives. So for God's sake, work with somebody that understands that process and cares about your life as much as you do. And frankly, there are people out there that they just don't do their jobs properly, and it makes us feel sick, quite frankly. But there's getting on to Australia. One of the clients, frankly, we took over now is a guy that studied a PhD in Australia. Lovely, lovely young man. And we're doing his application now to New Zealand. I don't think you know that. Liz knows because she's been handling it. But he's a lovely guy, and I'm not saying that agent he's using in Australia has done anything wrong. They actually haven't. But they haven't been transparent, Des, because he thinks that he was going to be in Australia in the next 3 months. Well, unfortunately, how long does an Australian application take now?
Okay,
Up to
so
2
once you're
years?
selected, once you're selected and you submit your residence application, those applications are taking 17 to 18 months to process. So that's not even factoring in the relevant occupation skills assessment or being selected from the EOI system. So
That's
once you're
outstanding. You know, Liz said that to me the other day. We looked it up, and Liz, on a 491, I think the processing time was 17 months after paying them.
Yeah, so for the 491, it's between 17 and 23 months.
And that's after you pay them, after you've been invited to apply.
Yes, once you
So-
submit the visa.
So what I wanted you to point out, Des, was you can't just start Australia now and think you're going to be there by next June, because you're not.
No.
Yeah. And, you know, one or two, Des, teachers are still being prioritised, and healthcare workers?
So teachers, healthcare workers, and then specifically at the moment for some for very specific states, they are prioritizing construction workers and trades because they are in need. So for example, Victoria, if you are an electrician or a carpenter and you're applying specifically to Victoria, they will be prioritizing your application.
Yeah, I actually did a blog on that today, ladies and gentlemen. So just go to, I don't know how they get to the blogs, Ron, you can probably tell them that. But I did a blog on the Victoria list today. I think there's 12 occupations that they're all in construction that they're looking for. Irene, you've raised a hand. Do you want to ask your question in the chat box, or can I view it? Hold on, do I view it? No. Please, Irene, if you want to ask your question in the chat box, please feel free. And the team will answer it for you. Okay, so let's just jump through here. Listen, guys, we're nearly finished. We've got about 10 minutes left. Okay, again, same as New Zealand, there's not a visa we can't help you with. All right, so let's just skip those. Des, this is another specific reason I wanted to talk to you today, because this was changed on Saturday.
Yes.
On the
So
7th.
there has been a few questions about this that I'd like to touch on. Obviously, we're all aware that the temporary, and if you're not aware, I'm going to let you know, the temporary skills shortage visa, the TTS visa, has changed to what is now called the SID visa, which is the skills and demand visa. The category or subclass has stayed exactly the same. It's still a 482. But one of the major, or some of the major changes are that there are now classifications for the 482. So if you're on the core stream, then you have to absolutely be on that new list, that the new CSOL list that's come out. And that core list is specifically for, I think it was 457 occupations only that fall on that list. You have to be earning $73,150 per annum. And the processing time that they are estimating, but I do think they've been very kind to themselves in that regard, is 21 days. I don't think it's going to be 21 days. The current TTS visa is about 3 to 5 months. But they've said that for anyone that earns over 135,000, that's going to be going under the specialist stream. You don't need an occupation that's specifically on the new skills list, but you do need to be earning over the 135,000 threshold, and that list will not, or that stream will not be applicable to trades. So if you're in a trade occupation, it's not for you. This is a specialist pathway. It's going to be capped at about 3,000 visas per year, and it is going to be processed in 7 days. So that is the allure with having the specialist stream. And then the last stream will be the labor stream, and that will be specifically if states or employers have specific labor agreements in place for the position that you're applying for. So that would be the main changes with the subclass 482.
Okay. Thank you very much, Des. And then I'm just go. You've answered the same thing. Same thing. Right. Okay. Cool.
Yes.
We will change those slides during Christmas, Ruan, clearly. Where are we here? There. Tourist visas into Australia, Des. Pretty easy to get, especially if you're going as a tourist.
Yeah, I think the important thing with this is a lot of people try their Australian visas specifically on their own, and then we'll get a decline and then come to us. And I think the important thing to note with Australia visitor visas is their system doesn't specifically ask you to do ties to your home country. It doesn't specifically ask you to provide bank statements. It doesn't
Yeah.
specifically ask for all the documents that we would necessarily provide up front. But it is important. Australia wants to know that you're not going to overstay. They want to know what your intentions are there. So if you have the opportunity to seek out immigration advice from an immigration advisor like ourselves, I would recommend that you do that in order to make sure that your Oz visitor visa is approved.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And then TI, I think it's TI. Liz is outstanding. If she's missed an email, I apologize, and so would she. But please send it to us again, and we'll respond to you tomorrow. You said you sent us a message about 2 weeks ago. Liz, I'm not sure if you saw that. You did, I'm assuming. I don't know who TI is, of course. So please just send us another email in the morning, please, and outlining that you sent us something 2 weeks ago. I mean, we get hundreds of emails, guys. We're only human. If we miss one, I apologize profusely, but it doesn't normally happen. Anyway, and then Muriel, you asked about your husband, construction company, registered here in SA, but he doesn't have a degree. He doesn't need one. All right. Construction industry is generally pretty buoyant, especially during the good times. He needs a job in construction, but he doesn't necessarily need a degree for that. So again, Muriel, just send us the CVs and we can send you the basic process. If he gets a job as a construction project manager, he should be earning well above the 100,000 anyway, which means he'd have a residency pathway anyway. All right. Sorry, I was just answering a couple of questions. Right. Holiday work. I mean, some countries, by the way, I'm not going to touch on this too long because it doesn't happen in Africa. In fact, I don't think any African country, and I know I'm right on that, aren't I? There's no African countries that can do a working holiday visa into New Zealand or Australia. No. So you might be listening from Brazil, for example, or Portugal or Spain or US or Canada. Yes, you can do working holiday visas, provided you meet the requirements, which is generally under 31 years old, as you can see, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to do a working holiday visa, you've got to be from a specific country, and there are still rules and regulations on that. Student visas, huge industry, massive industry in Australia. It brings in $8 billion a year. $1 billion a year. It is the second biggest income of industries in Australia is student visas. It's massive. There are nearly 30 universities in Australia and 60 odd technikons, but it's a big business, the student industry. So if you're wanting to travel and go and study, we'll send you the processes, but please be aware that because you're an international student, you will be paying international student rates. And that's what you've got to remember. And if you're coming from a euro-based economy or a pound or a dollar, fair enough. But if you're coming from most African countries' economies, then the rands and shillings and, pullers and whatever, they're quite weak against dollars and euros. So studying can be quite expensive. In saying that, we do quite a lot of student visas. So if you want information on a student visa, please let us know. Now, if you're going under a skilled listen, if you want to talk about spousal visas or parent visas or investor visas, in fact, all the business visas for Australia are closed at the moment, Des, aren't they? Still? Yeah. They haven't opened any business visas for Australia. Are still closed.
No. They're all still closed.
They're all still closed because they're revamping their investor and business visa process. So they will open again. They'll open again early next year. But at the moment, so if you want information on parents or spouses or partner, whatever, then just email us and we'll get back to you on those types of visas. The one we're talking about for the next 5 minutes until we log off, because we've got 5 more minutes, is the Australian skilled visa. All right. Now, 90% of you, if you're going in to Australia, on a skilled migration application, you're going to need a skills assessment from the relevant skills assessing authority. All right. And that would be, there's over 30 assessing authorities, and they charge. We'll do the skills assessment for you. You've just got to supply us with the documentation. A lot of migration agents don't do the skills assessment, so they just send you links to do them yourself. We do them for you. So we'll do those for you. If you've done them yourself, great. We'll give you a discount. on the fees, because it's part of our services to do those for you. But if you're lodging a skilled migrant application on a subclass 189, 190 or 491, in virtually 100% of cases, you're going to need a skills assessment, a positive skills assessment from the relevant assessing authorities. And we'll send you those fees in the pathways we send you. And then so once you've got your skills assessment done, you've sat the English test if you're required to, which most of you will still have to, et cetera, then we can load the applications. Now, when we load the applications into the Australian Skills Select Department of Home Affairs website, it's called Skills Select, it doesn't cost us to load. We do the work for you. It takes time to load an application, and often we'll load multiple applications. So we'll load a 189 and a 190 and possibly even a 491 at the same time. Take screenshots of this. I'm not going to go through it too much in detail. There's your points for your age. You'll notice the big one, though. If you're over 45 and you want to do a skilled migrant application into Australia, you can't. It's as simple as that, okay? There's your points for English. We'll talk more about that in your consultations that you're going to have with us. If your spouse sits the English test, then you can then claim points for that. If your spouse has a qualification that's on the same skills list as you, because for Australia, for skilled migrant, there's two skills lists. One's called the medium and long-term strategic list, and the other one is called the state and territory skilled occupations list. So if you're on one list and your spouse is on the same list and has the relevant qualifications, then you can claim 5 points for your spouse's English and 5 points for their qualification. There's the points for, of course, your work experience on the right-hand side below there. But of course, the work experience must be related to the qualification you're claiming. And it must be recent, as you can see, 3 out of 5, 5 out of 8, or 8 out of 10 years. And there's your points for your qualifications: doctorate 20, bachelor's 15, diploma or trade 10. And on the next slide, you'll see if you've studied in Australia, you get points. If you're a single applicant, in other words, you don't have a spouse. You might have children, but you don't have a spouse you're putting on your application. You can claim 10 points. Really weird, that one. I've always wondered why they put that one there. Anyway, if you're sponsored, if you're going in on a 189, that means you're selected from the 189 list. Now, this 65 can be quite misleading. All right. I'll use an accountant as an example. The last selection for accountants were last month. They selected them on 100. Okay, so if you're sitting on 65, when you load yourself into the pooling system, you can sit in that pool for 2 years if you're not selected. Okay, and it's a bit misleading, this minimum required, because they might, IT related jobs, they're not selecting anybody in the last few years on anything less than 80, 85, 90 points. So you might think, hey, yay, I'm in, I've got 70 points. Well, you might be sitting there for 2 years and not be selected. But unlike, and this is where we have a bit of a problem with some of my esteemed colleagues in the industry, they are not forthcoming with this information, and they should be. Before you pay them your hard-earned money, you should understand this process. You should know, okay, I'm an accountant. I'm sitting on 75 points. When's the last time an accountant was selected on 75 points? Well, I can tell you right now, it was 2016. So that's 9 years ago. Will they select accountants on 75 points again? I actually don't think so. I really don't. I think they're going to keep it at around 80, 85, 90. And as I said, last month was 100. And yet last month, a diesel mechanic was selected on 65. Okay. In fact, we had a few, Liz knows this, we had a few clients selected on 65, and we were quite surprised about it. Anyway, so we will tell you up front before you pay us if the likelihood of you being selected. And that's why we love the fact that we're also licensed for New Zealand, because if you're not selected for Australia and you're sitting in the pool, then we can switch your application to New Zealand for a nominal fee. And then if you're sponsored by a state on a 190, you get an extra 5 points. A 190, quite simply, is you still get permanent residency. You sign a caveat that states you're happy to live and work in the state that sponsored you for a period of 2 years. Okay, you still get free schooling, you still get free healthcare. And then a 491, where you're sponsored by an eligible family member. I wouldn't touch a family member to sponsor me into Australia, because the processing time, God only knows. I don't do them. 8, 9, 10 years to process if you're sponsored on a 491 for a family member. But if you're sponsored by a state on a 491, as we've just been talking about, once they've selected you, you're still looking at about 12 to 15 months before they grant you the visa, but you get 15 bonus points if you're sponsored by a state. And as Des mentioned earlier, like a priority sponsorship, like those 12 occupations for Victoria, they will be prioritised. They will be sponsored by the state. And because it's a priority application, i.e. the state's really demanding you, DHA in Australia will process that quite quickly, like they do with teachers and healthcare workers. They process them in around 3 months. Would I be right then, Des?
Yeah, sorry, Andy, can I also just jump in there?
Please
With
do.
regards to English, English for claiming points and English for a skills assessing authority to have a positive skills assessment outcome is not necessarily the same thing. For example, teachers and accountants, they have very specific English language requirements. So if you're asking for how, what you need in order to claim points, you'll need at least 7 in each band for IELTS, for example, to claim 7 points, or 8 in each band to claim 20 points, but that might not necessarily be what you need in order to get a positive skills assessment. So please contact us individually and we can actually clarify with you exactly what is required for the skills assessment and what is required in terms of claiming sufficient points.
Thanks, Des. Migration. Just spelling migration, guys. Andrew at Network. Yeah, guys, this is in my email again, Andrew at networkmigration.com. Clearly, everything you sent to me, I'm going to feed out anyway, because NP, you're asking, thanks, I'll send my CV shortly. Good. Okay, cool. Can we use the above email address? Yes, of course, you can. Send it to any of us, guys. We'll all get them. Our emails are at networkmigration.com and then our first names. All right, so you can literally send them to any of us and we'll distribute them. And then just the last slide here, or I think it's the second to last slide. Yes. Job search training and CV writing for Australia is exactly the same. Okay, Xenia will come on. The advantage that we've got when you're doing Australia, though, unless, of course, you're looking at a 482, i.e. a work visa, is that 90% of you will actually have your visas already. All right, and when you've got your visas in your hand, I promise you job hunting becomes a lot easier. All right, because that question you're getting from the company is, do you have the right to work? You're literally going, yes, I do. All right, but the job hunting for Australia is still there. It's part of our package prices. But unlike New Zealand, where we build it into a cost factor, Australia, we don't. It's a free, well, it's not a free service because we build it into a package price, but it's priced differently than we do to New Zealand, although the costs are pretty much the same. And then these are the things. I mean, Rose, she's outside with a very close friend of ours and her niece. Rose is in charge of helping you with physical aspects of relocation. We've recently bought a car in New Zealand and now ourselves to be able to offer to our clients a rental car, for example, and we'll come in lower than the rental car companies. And you can trust this car because it was my daughter's. And I bought it for her, and it's a lovely 7-seater Mazda, etc. So opening bank accounts, forex advice, furniture removals, pet, booking flights, meet and greet at airports, accommodation, both temporary and permanent, car rentals, purchases, property, blah, blah. We can put you in touch with our service providers, and they would be honoured to assist you. Guys, it's been a long time since I've done an hour-long presentation, and it's 9 o'clock at night over here, and of course 8 o'clock in the morning now in New Zealand, I think. And are the kids in school, Des? No. They're still in school?
No, well, yes, they're still at school, but they're not at school at the moment, which is probably why you're hearing them in the background.
Yes, they start at 9. Well, by the way, in New Zealand and Australia, for those who have youngsters listening to this cast, you start school at 9 o'clock, not 7:30 at the crack of dawn as we do in South Africa. All right? It's 9 o'clock. And by the way, you're going to some of the safest nations in the world. So the children, you won't need to drop them at school. They'll catch the school bus, they'll walk with their mates, or they'll ride their bikes. So you'll take a while to get used to that if you're coming from an African country. We do get that. All right. But I'm really proud of what we do. And just to summarize, I wanted to say a huge thank you to Desiree, Xenia, Liz, and Ruan, as always. We're having our Christmas party on Friday, so if you want to contact us on Friday afternoon, forget it. We won't answer you until either Saturday or Monday, but we're just having a little get together with the Joburg team or the African team. Unfortunately, Sam can't join us. She works remotely in Cape Town this year, but I'm absolutely blessed to be working with the people that I work with, and just the way that we believe you should be treated, i.e. with genuine respect, is the way we expect you to treat us. We understand that this is one of the most stressful things that you will do in your lives. It is also one of the most expensive things you'll do in your life. So let's not pull any punches here. So if you're going to work with somebody, make sure you're working with people that you've got a good feeling about. You trust them, you understand them. And we will always deal with you. Some clients are an absolute pleasure. Some are a little bit more difficult to deal with. And that doesn't matter, okay? Because we'll deal with you anyway. All we ask you to do is treat us with the respect that we treat you. We are handling your lives in a major part of setting you up, frankly, for the rest of your lives. And we are honoured to do that. And I am honoured to work with the 15 or 16 colleagues that I work with. And they... I asked Desiree once about a year ago, I said, what sets us apart from the other agencies out there that do what we do? And she quite simply said, Andrew, it's because we care. And it's as simple as that. You know, we care about this hugely. If you're struggling to find a job, we hurt as much as you do. If you're struggling with that piece of paperwork, we'll help you fix it. If you're struggling with that, we'll sit with you and we'll calm you down and we'll keep you positive, because this is a journey and we'd be honored to take it with you. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Rowan. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Ania. Thanks, Des. We'll chat soon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to us tonight. We hope it's been valuable for all of you. Stay safe wherever you are in the world. And if you do engage the services of Network Migration Services, as I mentioned just now, we would be honored to assist you in this journey. And if you don't, even after consulting with us, we would wish you all the very, very best. So thanks, everybody. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye all. Bye.